right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, listening, watching us. I'm super excited today. We have another interview lined up. We're gonna talk about new music, a band new to me, and I'm all excited. And our guest today is Ginkgo Balboa from Los Angeles, and I'm having Mike here with me. And yeah, we're gonna jump right in. And hello, Mike. How are you? And you're in Los Angeles right now, right?
Yes, I am. This is home base
Home
where
base.
all the writing is done. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Happy to be on Show Bites, and Ben should be here shortly.
Right. So, hopefully he's gonna join us soon. If not, we're just gonna have you here and answer some
Sure.
questions and talk all about what's going on with you guys. You just had a new single that came out recently, "Tie Me Down." It got released
Yes.
in the beginning of May. It came out.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo. It's been getting a lot of buzz because it's the first single from our new EP, and we'll have two more, and we're just so excited because it's this 3 years from our last EP, and it was around this time as well, spring to summer. So that's kind of our sweet spot when it comes to releasing music.
So, was there a reason you picked Cinco de Mayo to release it, or was it just coincidence?
That was coincidental. Yeah, it was just part of our release schedule with our publicist. So, but it was funny because I feel like usually that doesn't fall on a Friday, and we always release our music on Fridays. That's pretty much what you do in the DSP area, the digital streaming platform era. So, yeah, that was a fun coincidence for sure. I was actually in Temecula, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from here with some friends, and so we were at a winery, and it was a good way to toast to the single and make some social media stuff out of it. So it felt it felt like a good celebration.
That's awesome. That's a good coincidence. You're gonna celebrate at the same time. And so yeah, I noticed of course I've listened to it and it's got this really poppy sound and it's it makes you want to listen to it. But the actual theme of the singer, I guess, is relationships, setting boundaries. So is that kind of like tie me down? Is it, I guess, what was the thought behind it? Was one of you guys in a situation where you're okay, I'll write a song about it? Or how is your writing process to come up with
Mm.
songs?
Well, in general, usually, so Ben composes most of the music, and then write most of the lyrics. And I usually draw from personal experiences. I do like to write about dating relationships, but there's no animosity toward a particular person. It's usually just like tapping into the different emotions that people usually feel. So, for example, we have a song from last year called "Something Animal," and that was just like reminiscing about a time with a lover, someone that I miss sometimes, and I'm like, I want to make sure this I can, revisit that feeling on stage, and I want people to connect because everyone or a lot of people have been there. So the writing process is very personal, very narrative, I would say, without using too many, proper nouns. But for Tie Me Down in particular, it we advertise it as like a relationship breakup song because the lyrics I think evoke that sort of attitude, but it could also be a boss that someone's struggling with, or parents, for the younger fans of ours who are in high school. Anybody who's feeling pushed back by someone in their life, and they're not going to take that, they're going to find a way to persevere past it. And it's such a poppy song, and the lyrics start out introspective and some might say defeatist, but I think it's just realizing in real time how you feel during the song, and then by the end of it, the narrator is like, yeah, no, this is what's happening.
So having this still poppy melody and sound, like why didn't you guys just have this really dark, sad, melody to go with it? Because it's still kind of a little uplifting, poppy, but then you kind of talking about a subject that's maybe not as uplifting. So did you guys do it on purpose where it's still try not to?
Yeah, Ben actually requested at a certain point that all my songs were about like they were fun, or all my lyrics were about, like they're playful, and let's go out and come over after, or let's see what happens, and very very loosey goosey. And he comes in with, when he writes more or pushes back on, hey, let's write about something else, it's usually more of the darker tones, which I am comfortable with. It I was a rapper in high school, and I had an LP that came out, and almost had a record deal with that, and it was definitely darker. So I can tap into that. I don't know if you'd call it angst at a certain point, but more melancholy themes. But for me and what Ginkgo represents, I think we err on the side of fun. Just every once in a while, we tap into to yeah, a certain kind of emotional milieu that we don't oftentimes go for. But that's I would say that's what Ben would want. So Tie Me Down was one of those songs. But for me, when I'm writing, I really just want the melody to command how I feel. I don't sit down and say, this is going to be a song about this. It starts with the music. So, and then it's the stream of consciousness. Like, oh yeah, and then the themes, it's like a Venn diagram. Well, maybe not, because it has more than just two things, but yeah, there's little hot takes, and I have to string them all together somehow.
So you have like the lyrics first, and then you like come up with the melody, or do you like come up with some beats first and like, hey, let's see what we could write to this?
Yeah, it's almost always the melody first. Yeah. Oftentimes he'll make something, he'll send it to me, see what I think about it. And if I like it, I'll write to it. In fact, we have some new songs that I'm going to do that with tonight, probably. And it sucks because I don't want to sit down and say, I'm going to write some lyrics now or melodies, but sometimes, even though, you can't force the actual creative juices, you can still put yourself in the mindset for thriving. You can cultivate an environment where that's going to be more likely to happen. So that's what I try to do. But it's always the music first, I would say, and then sometimes the vocal melodies at the same time. Beach with My Lover was a song where I came up with the vocal melody and then like the chord progression at the same time, and just put it out on the keyboard and then sent it to Ben, and he made it flourish. That's a good example of how I prefer to make music. But sometimes he's usually making the music, and sometimes he'll send me something, and I'm like, I don't know. It needs a chord change here, or it needs a good bridge, or this sound effect is weird. Let's take that out. So we're in parallel lanes, he and I, but we also we do some merging and have to figure out how to get to the same destination.
Okay, so the cover picture for the new song, like "Tie Me Down," it has like this clown on it. So was that like, is it like because of the song is like talking about relationship and boundaries, that like some people in a relationship might feel like a clown? Like, is that how did the like whole cover picture idea come to like?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought this up. So I haven't announced this anywhere, but so this will be it here on Show Bites. But all three of our singles and the EP cover will involve that same clown. So that's kind of fun. It's definitely a running theme. Yeah, it's about the veneer of being happy, and or making others feel as if you are, whatever that means to you. It could be a relationship, it could be, like I mentioned before, a job, or like a living situation, and maybe you have a social media following, and you're really behind the scenes, you're just devastated about whatever your life is, what's actually happening. But Balloon Duty is twofold. The meaning of it and the artwork that goes with the EP and the songs is, the clown is representing that I have to maintain this image, or I have to maintain this decorum to get through my life. The clown is obviously looking out to the ocean with a sense of sadness, or you know meditation on something else that he wants to happen. But also, Balloon Duty kind of teases how it's the same thing as what I've been saying with how I like to write positive lyrics or like playful lyrics, but we are kind of poking fun at the idea that that's the only thing that we do. when people are like, "Oh, these guys are chill," chill is like the main word that people use to describe our music. So it's like we are on balloon duty. People are expecting us, our fans are expecting us to bring the fun vibes and not be too serious. But we also want to show that we are articulate and we have thoughts that are a little bit more existential sometimes. And how can we interpolate that into our music in a way that's not heavy handed? There's something else I was going to mention with the clown that I'm blanking on for a second. Oh, well, you mentioned relationships. I don't want to speak for Ben where he's talked about this publicly before, but he actually was in a marriage and that yeah, turned into a separation, went for many, many years. And there are a lot of times where songs will tap into that heartbreak. And again, to what extent where they are at now, I can't say. But we have a song from our first EP called The Taste of Colors, which actually is directly about that relationship. As for me, I can have the feeling of heartbreak as just like a longing for someone, but thankfully I mean, out of my own insecurity, I suppose, never gotten close enough to someone for that to happen. I kind of, have a fun distance from things, but I've had a muse in the past. When it comes to creativity, sometimes you do need someone to spur on your work. So, anyway,
So it's like everything has like everything you guys do has like an actual deep meaning. It's like it has like thought put into it. So it sounds like balloon duty kind of has like two meanings. It's like what you guys are to your fans, keeping up your image, but also whoever like has something in their own life going through it can relate to it. So it's like this whole like it has
yeah,
more than just one meaning. So it's
exactly. Yeah, and we want people to connect in the way or ways in which they're comfortable to. But it brings us the most joy when someone says that they, it got them through a difficult time. But because our music is more on the side of party vibes and that kind of stuff, it's usually, hey, this is a great backdrop for, at this bar we did this party, or I was on a date and I put your music on in the background and it was a nice soothing tone. That's usually the kind of responses that we get. But sometimes that's all that people need. It's hard in indie music, although the definition of indie these days is I would say hard to define. There's that thing where you're fighting against being derivative. You're fighting against anything that would be too cookie cutter or considered vanilla. So we try to tackle the fun without doing it in a way where we're going to compromise our musicianship or our thoughtfulness. So I think that's why sometimes it's like, hey, we wrote enough about this, let's do something else. But at the end of the day, it's a tough pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, most people just want to dance and they want to have a good time, and music isn't that big of a deal to them, which is like a knife in the heart to people like us. But
yeah.
you kind of have to meet everybody halfway for success. So that's what we're aiming to do.
So is that like was that like the reason you guys decided to do like synthesizer poppy music to like kind of get away a little bit from like the cookie cutter where everybody has like regular guitar and whatnot? Like was that like the decision you guys went that way to be like synthesizer poppy, or what was like the idea behind it?
That was an homage or maybe even an obsession with just 80s synth pop for starters. And then that revival from about 10, 15 years ago with MGMT and um, Empire of the Sun and Neon Indian. We were tapping into that because we both loved that sound. And Ben comes from a real metal background or maybe even emo and math rock. And for me, I wanted something that was a little bit more groovy, a little bit more funky, without actually being funk. Something in between. And I always had a soft spot for like 80s synth, and definitely the revival. I think it really defines a certain sector of millennial music and also now Generation Z. So it's still something. It transcends eras. The revival does. So even though our music could sound like, oh, this is from 2011, it also holds up as 2020 and beyond, you know. So, but the synthesizer, the heavy synthesizer use, yeah, it's a good way to make the melodies more accessible. I think guitar, it's not as popular as it once was, but it also could isolate people sometimes in the way that synths don't, because there's just a lot of noises you can make with them. And we're not as much in the era of EDM DJs being the biggest thing on the planet, but there's a little bit of overlap there because I also enjoy house and trance, and hopefully there are times where I'm like, let's kind of incorporate that where we can, but we also want to make sure we use real instruments to have that experience lived out on stage by the musicians in our band.
Yeah. So when you said like the whole like revival, and it's like millennials and Gen Z kind of like this whole like bringing the 80s back, like is that like what you guys like, is that your main audience, like you focus on like millennials, Gen Z, or do you even have like older generations that really like feel drawn to your music? Like do you notice like the balance, like who more reacts to your music?
Yeah, I think the Zoomers and millennials are definitely the sweet spot, but of course our music is for everybody. We want we're grateful for the privilege for anyone to hear it at all. There are some older people who say this reminds me of the stuff that I grew up with, which could be Genesis or Hall and Oates. So some of that retro the 80s inspiration that we aim to tap into has been successful. So that's good. But I would say it's mostly probably 24 to 34 is our range. But yeah, and that also goes with obviously, where we're at in our lives, but I think it works for the atmosphere. When we first started doing interviews for the EP in 2020, the eponymous one, we would say that our music would be great in the background of a brewery. That was the big thing. But I mean, H&M, Chipotle, I mean, take your pick on some American pseudo trendy corporation. I think sometimes our songs have been played at places like those, and I think that makes sense. It's just the atmosphere and the vibe. But by the way, we'd love to be bigger in Europe. Our very first single, we're like, this would be huge in the UK or something if the right ears hear it. So
Yeah.
that song is called The Other Day. So, who knows? But age wise, yeah, I would say it's those two aforementioned generations.
So when you said like the certain like stores and breweries that like have played your songs, like has it happened that you like walk somewhere and you heard your song play, or somebody told you like, hey, I was there and your song was playing? Like has it happened before?
So it's usually people telling us, and then we check our Shazam stats, and so it's like, okay, obviously someone heard this somewhere. I think there was one time where I heard a song, but it wasn't as big as like a department store, so like we didn't have the freak out like, oh my god, it's us. But there are times where you tell someone that you're from this band, and people will be like, oh yeah, yeah, no, I know who you are. I've heard your music before. You're on a playlist of mine, and that's like the closest I would say. That's a really heartwarming experience.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure
it,
it's
it
like even like when you like go on Shazam and you see somebody actually Shazammed your song, I'm sure that's like, oh my God, somebody really wanted to know what the song is. So it probably,
Yeah. Yeah, there's gratitude for that. I was going to say that like a lot of my indie peers, well, heroes, hopefully turn peers if we get to co-tour with them, like sometimes I don't even know what they look like, but I know their music from front to back. And I think that's also the age we're in with the internet and streaming culture. So there are some times where, yeah, you'll meet somebody who really likes one of your songs, but they didn't know that was your song, or they couldn't even remember the name Ginkgo Balboa to get there. So that's interesting. But yeah, the Shazam thing is huge. The first time that happened, I was like, I wish I can get to the bottom of this. Where was it? When was it? What song was it? Well, actually, it shows you what song it is, but you get what I'm saying. It's just like
yeah. But it doesn't
closest we'll get to
but it doesn't like
the
tell you,
1960s radio station, feeling. Anyway, sorry. It
does it
doesn't
like
tell you
tell
what.
you, does it tell you when or where somebody like streamed it? Like what location, like what state, what country, where somebody tried to like find out the song? Or does it just tell you somebody searched this song, but it doesn't like tell you the location?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it does. I mean, the analytics we mostly use is the Spotify for artists, which is really really in depth. So I can't recall if the last time I checked Shazam it shows the location. I think it shows, of course, the quantity, and they have like a bar graph. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's just the song that shows. It doesn't tap into where you have the most coverage.
Okay, so when you said like your song, your song would probably do really well in like England or like Germany or like in Europe in general. Like, have you guys had the chance to like get your song on like some of like the independent radio stations played out there, like some of those like online radios? Did you guys make any like?
Well, we had a little feature that we were really grateful for in Oceania, Australia specifically, which was cool. But no, we need to get back out there and get some outreach. We'll talk to our team about that. It would be nice to focus more on it. I think we had some ads when the other day, it was a popular song in certain circles, and when the music video came out, we were able to get that to reach a lot of views. So and when we broke down the statistics of it, it was worldwide. So there were some pockets there, but I think that momentum threw people off when our second single was a lot more subdued sounding, because we have the high energy dance songs, and then the more chill vibes, to use the term that people use to describe us. So so yeah, it's not just all high energy stuff. So I think some people are isolated when they want that certain one sound, but we offer both, and the theme throughout musically still uses the same kit of instruments, the same patches on our programming and stuff. So
Okay, I guess the whole EP is coming out in July. Was it July or
yeah,
June?
Friday, July 28th, and that's also the same. Separately, the last single will be released as well, and it's a collaboration with a singer named Morning Sun. So we're really excited about that. She's got an incredible voice.
How did you like come up with like the collaboration? Like, did you reach out to her or she reached out to you? And
We reached out to her. Yeah, we developed a friendship with her first. She was on Broadway several years ago, and the cast of Rent, and so she has a certain background in musical theater. But I would hear her sing and see her play at different venues in greater Los Angeles, and she has a really soulful voice, almost like a Sade meets. There's a little bit of like, yeah, who else? Well, Sade comes to mind, but also a certain kind of energy that is like a Lauren Hill type energy. So yeah, it was kind of one of those things. One of the best things about streaming culture, we had a collaboration with another singer last year that was great. But when you're on the same playlist as somebody and you start listening to the other artists just to support them, and you vibe with one of those artists, it's a really cool way to collaborate.
so you said you guys were both on the same playlist. Was it like somebody's like personal playlist, or was it like a playlist by some kind of like music channel, and then you like kind of just found her and reached out, or like do you guys generally just get like have you guys been featured on like bigger playlists or?
Yeah. So the person in question that we found on a playlist and then connected that way was Isa Landschlager. Um, she's actually from an area of Italy that's between Germany and Italy, Tyrol. Um, we did a song with her last year called Foreign Place on her record label called Digital Mountains Music, which is incredible. But Morning Sun, she doesn't have an online presence as much. She's more of a clandestine in her music stuff. She just performs a lot of shows and covers and things. So it might be the start of more of a digital career for her after this collaboration, because she's working on new original music. But the in terms of playlists we've been on, yeah, we still haven't been on like the Spotify editorial ones. We're submitting all the time. Our team's submitting all the time whenever we have a new single in the queue. But we've been on some of the bigger zines that have moved over to playlist platforms like We Do Alternative was one of the big ones where we were in like a small camp. It was like, the sweet spot is to be on a playlist of like maybe 10 to 20 songs that has 5,000 or more saves. The more songs in a playlist, the less likely your song is going to be played, because that's just the numbers. It's all pretty straightforward. Someone, it would take a long time for someone new to find it, and like your song would get buried really quickly. So yeah, it was one of those short playlists that had a lot of followers on its platform already. So that felt really good. But when we dig into the analytics, sometimes we see that we're on playlists where people are over and over listening, and they have different ways they want to enjoy our music. Like, this is a study playlist. Clearly, it says it in the title, and we're on there. Oh, that's cool. So there's always something that feels nice. But playlisting is everything these days, for
Yeah.
better or worse.
So does Spotify, like, I don't know, like how much information Spotify gives you? Like, does it like show you that if you're like on personal private playlists, like what they're named? If, like, let's say I just make a playlist on my Spotify where I'm not like I don't have like a public presence or whatever. It's just me like doing my little study list, and I add you guys to it. Does it like tell you exactly like, hey, you've been added to like Micah's study playlist, and then it shows you like that I added you to it? Like, how detailed is Spotify about it?
Yeah, if the playlist is public, then eventually, and you're spinning our songs enough on that playlist, it will show up on like our top 10 playlists that we're being featured on at that given time. If it's private, no. But like sometimes, so we have these little playlists that we make because I think it's important as an artist also to show, like, hey, we're listening to these people, check out these artists. We have one we update at least once a year. 20 So right now it's indie artists you should hear 2023 or something like that. And we also take our singles by year and release them. So if you take our playlist, it says 2023 singles, and you just listen to those 3 songs often enough times, then it will show up on our Spotify for artists that highlights the playlists that have been used the most. But that's also a good point, that listening to music could be private for some people. Just the ethos of it, how they carry their relationship with the songs they like, could be a very personal thing. So in that case, if the playlists were private, the song hits would still get to us, but just in a different way. So it might show, oh, this is from this location, this person of this gender and age group. So it all gets added to the charts.
So what is like, I know like a lot of like artists, like especially like in the last couple of years, a bunch of like artists spoke up against Spotify, and they're like not supporting Spotify anymore because they don't pay artists well enough. And just because of that, do you think like for like indie artists like you, Spotify is still valuable because it could get you like potential new fans and people finding your music? Like, do you not care about Spotify barely paying you, and do you still see a benefit in it in using it?
It's definitely frustrating now. We are with the artists and the other artists that say that, because it's definitely worse than it's ever been. It's the percentage is so low that you do get paid out based on how many streams. The exposure and the wishful thinking of reaching fans or A&R people, or people who can potentially change your career, that's what it's all about. Still being able to reach them, but it's definitely more difficult than before. And part of the reason why is because of the bots. People get these fake hits, and they get all these streams that come out of nowhere that aren't even real, and it's spiraling out of control to the point where the Spotify people can't shut that down. So that's an issue. There's also just it's algorithm integrity that they are lacking. I think it's even to the point now where if I find a song that I really enjoy, I oftentimes will go to the radio for that song. So on Spotify, you can, hit the ellipses, the 3 dots, and then it will give you the option to go to the radio for that song, which is specifically a radio station designed based on what that song, like what they think you would like. And it used to be that was an incredible way to find new music for me personally, because I'm a listener as much as I am an artist and performer. But nowadays, what Spotify tends to do is it takes songs that they know I like already or artists I like already and add them to that radio, which in a way is like, I love the customization of these platforms and how they know what my listening habits are. I think that's kind of fun. But at the same time, I want to expand that reach. And so if we're in a situation where someone's like, I like this song by Home Shake, and then we would have come up on that list as a small indie outfit that could really benefit from people knowing about us who listen to Home Shake, that possibility has become diminished because of Spotify's weird way of handling things. So yeah, I don't know how it can get better. I mean, people say, oh, the bread and butter is getting back on the road and performing, which I think is true, but because of the pandemic, a lot of venues shut down. So
Yeah.
there's that. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to dive into at all times with this stuff.
So when you guys are releasing your EP in July, is it just going to be like available on like Spotify, or do you guys have like hard copies? Are you going to be on like Bandcamp to like try to get a little bit of revenue in from like the EP? Or
So it's going to start with all the DSPs. It's going to be, people can go to Ginkgo Balboa.com and pick their platform. So Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Deezer, Tidal. We should be on all of them worldwide, even the ones that don't pay out, just for the expansion of reach. But Bandcamp specifically, I would like to get us on, because I know that's a good way for people to just donate and stand up for the cause of supporting us and what we created. For the first EP, I didn't really want to do that, because I thought, even though Bandcamp is a cool platform, I thought it was a little bit more cumbersome. I thought that having everything at your fingertips would be most important to people, because you have to download it, and it's like, who downloads MP3s anymore? But my opinion on that has changed after doing more research, and looking into it with new marketing people. We're like, okay, this might be a better way to go. But yeah, there's also cool ways to get little royalties from every show you've played. We're BMI registered songwriters, so we do whatever we can, but it you have to stretch a dollar, and then we have to pay our guys after a show that play in our live band. So definitely would be nice to get the stream bones.
yeah, I noticed, especially like when the pandemic hit and everything shut down, like you mentioned, venues like shut down for like over a year and nobody was able to play. All the artists were struggling, and I guess then people actually realized like how much artists like depend on actual real money and not just streams. And like 2020 is when I like paid more attention to Bandcamp, because I'm like, there's so many artists that I like even local artists, and they were all not able to play, and everybody was trying to do live stream and try to get people to donate some money so they can pay their bills. And that's like when I got into like Bandcamp, and then I noticed like Bandcamp has like their own player where everything you like download, you can like play on the like app, or like online you can have like your little player and listen to music. And that's when I just went, and everybody I like, all my local bands, I went and I bought all that stuff, like even stuff that I have on Spotify in my playlist. I went and bought all the little songs and CDs, because I know like, especially like on, is it first or the last Friday when Bandcamp does like Bandcamp Friday, where 100% goes to the artist. So I made sure like, okay, let me hit that exact Friday, so I know 100% is going to the artist. And I was just on there, and everybody I like, I'll try to like buy at least one or two like CDs, whatever, from the artist, just to like help them. Because like you said, like Spotify like barely pays anything. And that was especially like the time for artists where it like hit them really hard, and like, okay, what are we gonna do now? We can't play, we can't do anything. And then like artists weren't allowed to get any of like the help from the government that they were like handing out to all like the essential workers. And like, oh, artists, we don't care about you, you don't need our support. So it was probably, was it like really tough for you guys too, or did you guys have
Yeah,
like day jobs?
no, it was very well. First of all, thanks for doing that. You're the ideal fan when you say those things. I'm like, oh man, yeah. It's just a lot of people don't realize the effort and the time it takes for all that stuff. Yeah, it was tricky. I mean, we did have supplemental jobs that, kind of turned into, I mean, holding on to savings and things like that. But it was also the very, very beginning of Ginkgo, so we hadn't fully figured out what we were going to look like just yet. We were mastering our first EP, which is almost done, but yeah, we had just gotten our first manager, and we were getting ready to hit the stages. So it did affect us a lot, and we were kind of like emotionally bamboozled by it. I mean, everybody was, right? So, and now I don't think things are ever going to be the same, like, especially when it comes to live venues. I mentioned this on another interview, but we had a tour we were about to take on with a prominent booking company, but there were so many venues the guy was talking about, the booking agent was talking about, that he said he would have sent us to that are defunct, because of the pandemic. And it was just devastating to hear that from him directly. And you know, LA has a pretty poisonous pay to play culture. There's a lot of clubs that I grew up wanting to see, and then I move here and start to get the opportunity to play them, and it's like all payola stuff. Like, if you can bring 100 people, we'll book you. And it's like, I mean, we can generate new fans over time, sure, but it's like the fact that you open with that, it's like going on a date with someone and being like, I'm not having a drink unless I know this is gonna end in,
Yeah.
so it felt like really cheap. And I was just like, well, then why are we even doing this? Because you clearly don't care about the artists, and also you're going to take a percentage of our merch sales too. It's like, I don't know. So they just, yeah, when people don't have a respect for the fact, like you said, that live music is a big part of our income potentially, and then also our merch, and it takes a lot of work to make everything add up. I really do want to release our music on vinyls though, at least the EPs, just like back to back would be super fun at some point. So stay tuned for that, everybody. That should happen. But it's good that we're getting to talk about all this stuff readily, because it's important, and I want people to know what it is we actually go through. It's, instead of just being cheerful about it all the time. So
Yeah.
the lift the veil is good. And it sucks that you have to, when someone says, hey, I like your new song, you have to pretty much awkwardly ask them after, oh, well, I'm glad you like it, but don't forget to follow us too, and don't forget to throw a little heart on that bad boy, and then put it on a playlist. Like, you have to remind people to do that stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed like I mean I used to be the same, whereas like years ago when you go to local shows and then you see like bands like selling the merch and you're like, oh my God, it's 20 or 30 bucks for a t-shirt. Are you crazy? But then the whole like pandemic happened, and then you get like the whole insights when like artists were speaking up how much they're struggling and how much work is actually going into it. And then now I'm like looking at it like, okay, if I give you 20, 30 bucks for a t-shirt, I know you really need that money, because like especially like DIY artists, like they don't have like big labels, whatever, that like pay for their like travel costs for their hotels, and like all the big artists, like yeah, everything is paid for them. They just show up, they have people setting up the stage for them. But all like these like DIY artists, like yeah, they have to like get their own van they rent. They have to like sleep in the van because they can't afford a hotel. They have to set up their own stage. And then you just think about it like, yeah, I'm not just like spending 20 bucks on a t-shirt. I'm spending 20 bucks on like to like help them like survive. And I guess it's just like people just understanding like, hey, it's not just an overpriced item. Like you're paying for their art, because like a lot of artists don't have like day jobs that pay their bills, so they're like sitting at home trying to work on new music, and all the stuff is just unpaid, where you just sit at home and like figure stuff out and come up with ideas. Like there's nobody like paying you every hour, like hey, like a day job. So it's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just thinking about it like, hey, yeah, it might be a little bit more than buying a t-shirt at Walmart, but you're like helping support the artist and paying for the whole art that goes into it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. A lot of sacrifices are made, on behalf of the artists, and you can only stretch a royalty statement so far, unless you're that 1% of big artists, yeah, who have a bunch of people following them around all the time. So yeah, exactly. So we hope things will get easier there for everybody, for all of our peers. And it's crazy, like some of the artists that I look up to, like again, that I hope we can ideally go on the road with someday, who knows, or cultivate a friendship with. Most importantly, like you can look at someone's streams and be like, oh, they're killing it right now, and they might be in terms of Spotify or something like that, but it doesn't mean that they might be breaking even at most of their shows. So everything now is shrouded in mystery, and there's smoke and mirrors everywhere. Because again, if those hits on digital platforms are real, that might be the only way those artists make money at all. Like they can't draw a crowd, or vice versa. These people are really fun live, but we don't really want to hear their studio recordings, or it hasn't gotten the right reach. So it's funny. It's fickle.
So when you say like you have like some dream artist you would go on tour with, like do you have like one where you think like this would be the perfect tour if we could like be like on tour with them? Like what would be like your dream artist that you think would?
Well, yeah. So I saw Tops play, TOPS, all caps. If you're not familiar, incredible band. I saw them play at the Wiltern this last winter, and after the show, I went up to Jane Penny, the lead singer, and gave her a couple of Ginkgo Balboa shirts for her and the keyboard player. And it's one of those things where the artists are at a certain level where, like, I just greatly admire them. And they were opening for Soccer Mommy, and Soccer Mommy was great too. But it's one of those things where you're at a certain level of fame and success where you can hang out at the merch table and not get too bombarded by people. And I wanted to like gush about different songs and totally fanboy out about my favorite record by them and blah blah blah. But it just happened so fast that I gave her a couple shirts, and I was like, check out our stuff, and she was pretty thrilled about it. But I made the mistake. So if Jane, if you ever see this, I'm sorry that I completely jumped to, hey, if you like our stuff, we'd be honored to open for you, because I said something like that. But I shouldn't have,
Yeah, clearly.
let throw all the cards on the table. Yeah, because it's like that's evident whether or not it's said. But
Yeah.
again, like, I don't know how much money they make, or I just know that I admire them, and there's other artists like that too, like at the forefront. But that was someone I got to meet, and I was just like, man, it's for me what makes an artist that I really admire, that I imagine us being on the road with. It's like the not envy, but the respect for their music, where I'm like, oh, I wish we wrote that. Or I wish that was one of our songs. Um, Another one is he's been around for a while, but Washed Out. You know, he has a new album that came out in 2020 that just blew my mind, and I'm like, I wish that was we made music like that. Maybe I can, have our sound go in that direction, or release a solo album like that. But yeah, I have my favorites. Force Beach, Men I Trust. I feel like I name dropped them in a lot of interviews. So I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I haven't shouted out. But there's a list for sure. Yacht Club is super cool. He has a new album out right now. But anyway, yeah. So it's one of those things. It's like, man, we can't be too desperate, but in our minds, like, the
Yeah.
names would fit together and the sounds would fit together. So
Well, I hope it works out, and maybe one of the bands sees the interview and reaches out, and I'm hoping you guys get your big chance and with the new EP coming out. So yeah, the EP comes out in July. Do you have like a release party set up, or what's like the whole plan for like the EP coming out?
yeah, absolutely. So online we did the whole waterfall method, where it's like the first single, Tie Me Down, comes out, then the second single, which comes out in a few weeks in June, is called Palm Trees, and it will have Tie Me Down underneath it. So it's on the platform. So it's like, oh, here our new single, and then here our last new single, at this right after that, and then so on. So Helena Troy featuring Morning Sun will be our third single, and that will have the option to hear Palm Trees and Tie Me Down beneath it, and then the EP, and the third single and the EP are both released on July 28th. As for release party, we're in the process of planning that now. Yeah, we definitely, this press tour has been comprehensive and exciting. We have a show coming up on June 9th at a local club called the Universal Bar and Grill. We're calling it a homecoming show because we played there about a year ago, and they really love us there, and we want to incorporate the fact that it's like a EP show. So, but I don't know how many of the new songs we're going to get to play live because we haven't been able to work on those as much because we've been so busy with interviews and things. But there's that. There would definitely be a release party. It's actually in my iPhone notes to plan that soon. I want to rent out a place so we can all just celebrate, friends and fans as well, but mostly our I think our inner circle for the intimate reflection on what it's been to have this be made. The guy who plays the clown hopefully will be there. So it'll be like
Wow.
the elements, and we can bring all the interviewers and EPK warriors who have helped us throughout this journey. We totally would. But yeah, it'll be in LA for sure.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'm gonna keep my eyes open for that. And so yeah, is there like anything else you want to like mention, talk about, anything you say people need to know about the band?
We we are moving in a direction artistically where we want to keep that supposed swagger we have, but we also will continue modernizing our music. So don't be surprised if you hear a little bit of influences you didn't expect before, but it's going to be more pop, more fun, not quite mainstream. We're alternative through and through, but we will keep everyone guessing as we always have. And just want to remind everyone to go to GINKGOBALBOA.com to pick where to hear us. And as I just said before, you got to remind people, add to playlists, follow, like, subscribe, leave a comment. It all helps. In fact, our Instagram, which is at Ginkgo Balboa Band, GINKGOBALBOABAND, our newest post is highlighting lyrics from Tie Me Down. And we invite people in the comments to give their emotional responses and what it means to them. So I encourage everyone to do that. But otherwise, yeah, thank you so much. And always keep your eyes on our page. Hit that bell, because whatever platform, because we got some new stuff coming your way. July 28th, Balloon Duty. It's the summer of resurgence from the pandemic.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and then for everybody that didn't follow about all the ads, I'm gonna link everything, all your platforms, pages. I'm gonna
Thank you.
link them all up so people can just click on it and don't have to remember the whole. so
Yeah.
so yeah, thank you for joining us, and I'm super excited about the EP coming up. I'm gonna keep my eyes open about the release and everything, and yeah, thanks again for joining us. The interview will be up soon, and thanks for everybody listening. And hopefully, you will check out the song "Tie Me Down" and, of course, the EP, and give Ginkgo Balboa a follow. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.